Thank you, Jet. And to Inox, you're not a bottom tier team. You're number one now.
Number one, baby.
With that win, they move up into the top half of the standings there. You know, a quick breakdown of that game, the things I want to look at are kind of twofold, right? So on the side of Gravity, I would have to say they had the better macro play, the rotational play, whereas Enemy looked like they were a little bit slower around the map this time around.
Yeah, they were giving up a lot of turrets. Gravity was doing a really good job of controlling the jungle. And if you watch that game back and just check jungle vision, despite having 2 sight stones, Trashy was not getting adequate vision down past the river to see the moves of Gravity before they happened. It's like 5 people are top, and it's like, wait a second, how are there 5 people top? They kill flares, and then they get a turret, and Otter's like, well, I guess I have to go bottom. And then it's like, they're doing Baron now, and they have to pull people all the way from bottom lane there. So they're just being moved around the map in a very inefficient way. So
yeah, it was lethargic, it was inefficient.
Enemy seemed pretty lazy to objectives. They did get every dragon, though. That's the other thing, is they kept winning team fights near dragon and getting it with just solo Otter every now and then. So that was kind of like the plus side for them, is these dragons were falling into their lap off of team fights.
Right, so some of that could probably be attributed to the fact that they hadn't been playing with Trashy for a few weeks, so the vision control and the communication around the vision wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
Someone else who I didn't think had a fantastic showing was Flares. Seemed to struggle in that 1v1 up against Hecarim in the top lane. However, now I move to the people who did show up and play very well. Inox in the mid lane, 4-1 very early on that Kassadin, making a statement with the 11-minute Roa on the Kassadin, as well as Otter on the Vayne, saying, look at me, I can play Vayne and, you know, carry through in the late game. I mean, with Fizz diving in on you every single time, quick with the Quicksilver Sash and the heals to, you know, to live through the initial burst and then roll through the rest of the team.
Yeah, and this team, when I watch them in Challenger, every lane has carry potential. Sometimes Flares carry, sometimes Inox. Trashy has jungle games where he'll just go off on Rek'Sai. And Otter was the one who didn't carry as frequently, so it's good to see a carry game from him to really kind of just nail that home, that this is a team that has multiple threats. And despite having a Hecarim and a Fizz going after him, they didn't always seem on the same page on the side of Gravity. They were always like, let's protect Altec. Altec will deal the damage. And instead of having Fizz, the Nunu trying to slow the attack speed of the Vayne, as well as getting the Hecarim and Fizz into that backline, you saw some fights where it was like, only Hecarim went. And then it's like, all right, final hour, time to get my 60% crit off and tumble crit people for 700 damage over and over again. He like 2-shot, 3-shot Altec at one point with 2 crits.
Absolutely.
And just opened the game wide up. Those were the team fights they were winning, though.
Yeah, I do have to say, I think they were hindered a little bit by the fact that they had the Nunu that was never going to get to the Vayne. So in those late game team fights, it was between Fizz and Hecarim to get there. And then, as you said, sometimes just didn't sync up for that kill. Last thing about Enemy here is moving into tomorrow, they are facing up against TSM, as Jad said. That's going to be a real test for them. We saw TSM drop a game to C9 today, but I'm not sure that they're going to let that happen again. You know, TSM's going to come in out for blood this time around.
Yeah, the thing I'm going to look at when that matchup happens is jungle mid lane synergy. Trashy and Ox were really good in Challenger, and then Santorin and Bjergsen, the Great Danes, how are they going to go up against this duo? Because that's really the first really big test for Inox. How good of a mid laner is this guy? Because we saw him up against Keen. He was pretty convincing today, but I want to see him up against Bjergsen and what he can bring to the table. Trashy did not look up to form. He's usually a very aggressive jungler. He's usually a very good teamfight jungler. He was not hitting Sejuani ultimates today. And Santorin was also kind of having a wishy-washy day. So I want to see what happens when these teams clash.
All right, well, with that, we're one day into the summer split, and let's see how the teams are arranged in the standings. Right now, the league is split right down the middle between the haves and have-nots. Sharing first with 1 win apiece are Cloud9, CLG, Enemy eSports, Team Impulse, and Liquid. Now, the 5 teams that are looking to get on the board still are Gravity, Team 8, Team Dignitas, Team Dragon Knights, and TSM. So even though it is a small sample size, let's take a step back. Give me your thoughts on the LCS now as a whole after day 1. We've watched every team play once. Let's make wild inferences.
Cloud9's the greatest team
as to how good these teams actually are. I do have to say I was impressed by Cloud9 and their patience in the game. Incarnation showing a little bit of nerves on the land setting, missing a lot of uncontested CS. I mean, he was pressured a lot by Bjergsen, sure, but there was CS in there he should have been hitting that he wasn't. But the team as a whole showed a lot of composure and patience in getting him to the power spike and then playing the rest of the map correctly to get that win.
And if that's the only problem you're having is, oh, it's my first game on LAN and I'm missing some CS because I'm nervous and I got level 2 pressured. Bjergsen got Raptors for level 2 over me. I got a jungle gank and blew my flash early. Like, that is probably the best problem to have if you're going to have a problem is I'm just a little nervous on lane. That comes with time, that comes with doing it more and more, and then eventually he's just going to be this guy who's very calm, collected, and can execute those aggressive plays that he wants to. So he seems very motivated, and I think Cloud9 definitely look really, really good with Incarnation. Like, they're just going to look better and better. His team fighting, his ultimates were really good. There were some hiccups, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And those are just coming in and being like, oh, they don't have a shot caller, who's the shot caller Meteos is. That's like, so far, that's like A+ for first day.
Yeah, on the flip side of that matchup, TSM, somewhat disappointing that they had such a fantastic lead. Bjergsen's, 980 CS up at one point, and they're not able to close that win out. I mean, this only adds to the pressure of having come out of MSI with a disappointing showing.
Yeah, and TSM, they need this win tomorrow over Enemy. They really just have to study up today, watch that game from Enemy, and they do have rotational play, which Enemy seem to fall behind on today, and they could exploit Trashy because they haven't played with him too much very lately. Like, it's just one of those things. I don't know if Trashy's like jet lagged or anything right now either, because he just seemed very sluggish, and they did not seem on top of their game. So I think that TSM, they definitely will need to pull out that victory tomorrow. I do want to see them, because Dyrus is once again first blood. Right? I want to see them put resources in that top lane. I want to see that top lane carry happen.
One day it will happen. Well, anyway, tomorrow we'll be back with another 5 games to kick off our first week of action, starting with Team Liquid squaring off against Team 8. After that, Team Dignitas will challenge Cloud9, and we'll conclude the day with Team Dragon Knights versus Gravity. That all gets underway starting at noon Pacific, 9 p.m. Central European Summertime. Now, for myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.